Hello chess fans, in today's video I'm going to be playing against another beginner chess player, and I'm going to be showing you how I think about playing a chess game and how often that expert level player or class A level player, high rated player basically, can beat uh, a lower rated player or a beginner like a 1270. So hopefully this will help some of you get out of your 1270 rating and maybe climb a little bit higher. So my opponent starts off with e4, and I think that's a great move, so I'm going to play e5, controlling the center and also activating my bishop. And this will be a more instructional type of content in which I explain all my moves to like the very simplest of levels. So my opponent plays knight f3, developing a piece and attacking my pawn. So I want to both develop my piece and defend the pawn. So I'm going to go here, which defends the pawn on e5. And so my opponent will likely develop another piece with, okay, yeah, knight c3 is a fine move. I think I'm just going to copy him for now because so far our knights are doing a lot of jobs controlling the center and also putting developing pieces and getting ready to castle. So my opponent plays d3. And so this is already the first mistake we have seen by my opponent because he's blocked his bishop for no particular reason and he's defended a pawn that was already defended. Instead, a move like maybe bishop b5 or bishop c4 even would have been better. So I'm going to play bishop b4 myself, pinning the knight, also maybe preparing d5 to open up my other bishop, and also preparing to castle because obviously in the developing stages of the game, you want to castle your king to safety. So already I would say here that we are slightly better, maybe even much better, because of the fact that his pieces are going to not find great squares. And honestly, what I expect to see from my opponent here is something like maybe bishop g5. And this is not a great move because he should maybe focus on castling, but also lots of beginners, when they see they can get a pin, they often just take the chance to get a pin without really thinking about the repercussions about getting that pin. So my opponent is thinking here, and okay, as you can see, he gained a lot of time there. It's because I disconnected. And so my opponent plays bishop d2. So here I think I'm just going to castle because he doesn't really have a threat. Notice if I play d5, he can take with the knight, which also brings an attack on my bishop, but thankfully my bishop is defended, so I'm just going to castle, get my king to safety, and not think too much. Obviously here I'm down a lot of time, so you also want to play generally quite quickly in the opening. But never play too quick, make sure you think about your moves. So my opponent is now playing g3. Okay, this is a bad move, because you create a square with your bishop on e2, and now you create more light squared weaknesses with here. So I'm thinking about a few moves here, the first of which is d5, and after he takes, let's say I take, let's say he takes, I take, there's some annoying pressure on this knight. And if he plays bishop g2 and castles, it seems like he's fine. Another thing to notice is that this f2 pawn can't really be defended, but I'm not sure how I attack it. And so, from that pretty light analysis, I think that maybe d5 is not great because he's going to get his bishop on this long diagonal. So I'm just going to play d6. The bishop here won't be doing anything. So obviously my bishop therefore is better because my bishop will come here. And if this g3 move was for no purpose, then g3 was a terrible move. Okay, so my opponent does play bishop g2, which is a fine move. And now I think I'm going to play rook e8, simply maybe playing this in the future. But obviously I don't know if I'm going to do that. This position is a hard type of position that often a lot of beginners make a mistake at. And I actually might make a mistake here because I'm not too familiar with this. And actually, I just realized an idea. An idea for me might be to play with f5. And that's also a kind of tricky idea, so I might go for that. I might go for knight e8, g6 here, and f5. Though that does open his bishop. So maybe instead I want to go with something on the queen side. The play is not really obvious here for me, but I think I have a slightly better position. So I think I should just keep it simple. Maybe play like bishop e6. Or even h6, just slightly improving because the position is so closed, I don't really have to do anything. So I'm going to play this move h6 without thinking that much. He might have some knight here ideas now that I've played h6, but it should be fine. I think just preventing bishop g5 and playing bishop g6 to prepare this should be fine. And so now what I suspect my opponent will do is make a serious mistake here because, oh, well, he doesn't. Because often when there's not really any clear ideas of what to do, the rook really is doing nothing here. A beginner will often make a big mistake. So rook e1 might already be an inaccuracy, might be, but because bishop The bishop here is very nice. b4 is fine if he wants to grab my bishop. But if he doesn't want to grab my bishop, then it's a slightly strange move. But okay, queen b1. This is actually some very high level play by my opponents. This queen b1 move is a pretty good move because of the fact that like you're preparing some queenside expansion. So I did not really expect my opponent to be playing like as well as they are playing. So I'm just gonna play a6, just saving my bishop, I think. And if he plays a5, I'll take and play knight d4. But I guess he takes with a knight, so I can't do that. So after a b5, I guess I just play knight d4 immediately because I don't really need to take. There's no need for me to. And I guess he's gonna play a4, which if my opponent does play a4, then his whole plan so far has made a lot of sense, which I often don't see from a player of his level. Often they lack plans here. But this queen b1 move, if you see this by your opponent, I think your opponent is like a very good player because this queen b1 move makes a lot of sense. Okay, we see h4. Not sure what h4 does. This is the type of move I expect to see because I don't think it really does anything. And so here I have a plan. I'm going to go queen d7, bishop h3, takes, or if he takes with the king, then I'm going to try to bring my queen in. And then I'm going to go knight d4 and knight g4, try to get rid of this knight and try to mate. So if you couldn't keep up with me, the queen is basically going to be here. These bishops are going to be gone. And I'm going to play knight d4 with a knight on g4. And if he would ever take, then I have mate here. So I'm going to have some attacking ideas here, while my opponent, on the other hand, is going to try to expand on the queen side, maybe get a passer, maybe win some material. But obviously I have a king side attack. And what is most important in these types of positions is to have a plan. So at least I have a plan. I'm going to like trade these bishops and then try to mate him. But my opponent seemingly played h4, which doesn't really do a ton. And okay, we see rook here. Now, rook here is a decent move. It prepares bishop e3, which is fine, but it's not like an amazing move. I would like to see a4 instead, but he hasn't made a blunder so far. I'm thinking of knight g4 immediately attacking here, but my opponent just plays here. Let's say I take, he takes with the pawn. His pawns are weak there, and so maybe I do have f5 in that position. Knight g4, bishop e3, takes, and this is pinned. And so I can go for something like bishop h3. And try to trade this. He offered a draw. I'm not going to take a draw. Knight g4, and bishop e3, takes. There's a pin here. I can go bishop h3. If he takes, obviously that's bad because my queen gets in. And then later I can go for f5, bring my rook into the attack. So I think that's what I'm going to go for. If he moves his bishop here, I'm going to take here. And if he moves his rook back, then maybe I actually have not played a great move, sadly. Yeah, I guess the whole idea was to bring the rook attack in as well. Like after rook takes rook here, then I have even more attackers running there. Okay, my opponent defends the pawn laterally. So now I'm going to go for f5. Simply adding my rook to the attack of this. And now the queen on b1 is looking kind of silly. And next probably is going to be like knight d4, takes. And I'll have a pin here. I'll have pressure on this. And I'll probably be winning there. My opponent honestly made me really earn this win. Or not win, I shouldn't say win yet because the game is not over. But my opponent is really playing very well and playing a lot of good ideas. Okay, another like amazing move by my opponent, simply ignoring the threats on this pawn because he can just take with the knight. And after that, there is no real like big threat for me. So I think I'm going to play knight d4. And after takes, he does have a take here. But yeah, my opponent is playing actually very well, which is honestly very surprising. Maybe I messed this position up, which is kind of funny, but I also probably should do something like this, possibly. But that doesn't really accomplish anything. Knight d4, takes also is an option. I think I'm going to go for knight d4. If he wants to win a pawn, it comes at the cost of really opening his king. And the idea from this is that after takes, he'll have to take with something that is that he doesn't want to take with. I.e., he can't take with a knight because it would be pinned to the rook, and I would win material in that position. So knight d4 seems like bringing more pieces into attack, getting rid of his defender, also attacking the rook. So if maybe he blunders with, I don't know, queen b3 or whatever, then he would be lost. So let's see what my opponent is going to play. So I'm just making sure that I don't disconnect here because I've been having not great Wi-Fi as recently. So I opened the game on my phone just so that I don't disconnect. Okay, my opponent takes. So I could take here, but that obviously is not good because then I block my bishop. So I'm going to take here. If he wants to take here, and then take here, that would be maybe interesting, but I think bad because I can just take on f2, and if he takes here, I can grab a ton of material. So I don't expect my opponent to go into that, considering how well he's been playing. Maybe my opponent will play bishop e3, but that would just blunder a knight. Okay, my opponent ignores my plan, kind of, and now here is where I think I finally managed to get a winning advantage. After f takes e4, I don't really see how he's defending on f2. I have 3 attackers, he has 2 defenders. Simple counting tells me simple counting tells me that I'm gonna win this pawn. And if he takes with a knight, I take the rook in the corner, and then after he takes back with queen, I have a pin here. So because the queen would be on a1 and the rook would be staring at it, so he can't take with the knight. If he takes, oh, okay, he takes with the knight. So my opponent blundered his first material. I've gotten my first material advantage of the game, and so what you probably have to do is just take the material. I was thinking about d5 for a second, but likely that's no good. So now I'll take on b5, and the threat of this is that the queen is pinned. Okay, my opponent is playing like spectacularly. I don't think you should probably see this high level of play from any of your opponents at this level, but obviously my opponent is playing really, really well. And so I think I can go for that pawn, but it's defended by the bishop, so I'm just going to play knight here to offer a trade. And when you're up material, you just can offer trades and be safe. Okay, but I just realized I actually blundered this pawn, which is hilarious because then his pawn is going to be passed. Okay, this just hangs a pawn though. So I actually blundered with knight f6 because after takes, he takes here, and after here he plays a6, and my rook is trapped. So I actually blundered the game, but thankfully my opponent didn't see it, but instead blundered this pawn over here. And I should just take here, I assume. Nothing wrong with this. Just preserving this square. He can take here, and then take here if he wants. And I'll play rook a7, attacking his bishop. If he protects it, he loses the rook. So, yeah, actually, I'm very surprised at how my opponent is playing so extremely well at the moment. But, okay, I'm simply just going to trade more material. After he takes with the bishop, which is, oh, more likely. Okay, he takes with the rook. So I'm going to play here now, which attacks his rook. And also, if he moves his rook anywhere, I get more trades. So, yeah. I'm just going to keep on trading. When you're up material, just trade. And I'm also going to start playing quicker here. Because often when you're playing a slowish game, you need to play really quickly near the end so that you don't lose a lot of time. And my opponent has played, actually so far, I would say near perfect. Not perfect, sorry. But very well. So here I'm going to set up a trap. I think he's going to take here. So I'm just going to play like a useless move, rook f6, to prepare maybe rook here. He's probably going to take here, I would guess. And that, okay, yeah, he does. And then here I had the fork, which is what I was thinking of. And honestly, that was not a great move, but sometimes at this kind of level, you can just play a tricky move. It doesn't have to be necessarily the best move on the board. It just has to be a move that you think maybe your opponent will fall for a trick or something. And so here I think my opponent is actually losing the queen more than just that. Should I take this pawn? I'm not sure if I should. I could also play here, and I don't see how he's stopping this mate. Yeah, I don't see how he's stopping this mate, actually. Wait, actually I can go check here, and then mate. Okay, so that's mate. He goes back, and then I give a check with the rook. He goes here, and then I mate him. Okay, so that was a very excellent game by my opponent. And so that hopefully was like a good example of how you beat opponents at this level. Obviously, oh, okay, wait. I realized he can block the check. But I could take this, which threatens here. But then he goes here. Okay, my opponent is making this slightly annoying. This is a good idea if you're at this level, because often, you know, someone's going to make a blunder that'll lose the game. So I could take here, he plays here. That's not that pleasant. I'm just going to take the rook. I think this is okay. Also, maybe be careful about my time, be careful about stalemate, all things like this. And never count, like never think you've won before you've actually won. Before you see the resign button or you see something like that, then don't count your opponent out ever. I'm just gonna give a check. I think I'll actually just take this bishop. Now I'll take here. After he goes here, I'll play like queen here. And I'll just keep on checking because honestly, I'm actually pretty low on time, surprisingly. And so here I'm bringing my queen closer. And here I'll offer a queen trade. And his king is kind of stuck. And I'll play here, which he has to move back, and then I have here mate. So yeah, that was a great game by my opponent, and hopefully that was a good idea of how you don't really have to do anything too special. Oftentimes your opponent will just self-destruct, and make sure you always have an idea of like what to do in the position, because at this sort of level of like 1200, 1300, you need to have an idea of how you can win material, how you can, you know, advance to your side, how you can get more space. And it seems my idea worked out pretty well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.